You're a German soldier in the Great War, close to the River Yser. You've heard about the crimes that your comrades have done to the Belgians, and you can't help but question the morality of conquering their land and ports. Shots are fired as the water level quickly raises. Your comrades start falling while you get cover, and you hear some shouting on the other side. Belgians, the Germans wanted Dunkirk port, but we're not gonna let them have it. What we will let them have is a giant pool for them to drown in. Am I right, Belgians? Yes, your highness. Of course I am. Wait, is that the king of the Belgians? You get it now. You don't have to feel guilty for taking that port, because you're simply not doing that. In summer of 1914, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand ignited a conflict between the Triple Alliance of Central Powers and the Triple Entente. The Central Powers were the German and Austro-Hungarian empires, together with Italy, and the Triple Entente were France, UK, and Russia. Both alliances secured the independence of Belgium. Germany would be forced to fight due to their alliance with Austro-Hungary, but they were facing the mightiest nations of Europe. They feared that Russia would declare war on them to protect their Serbian allies, and France would too, initiating a war in which Germany would have to divide their troops on two massive fronts. Enter the Schlieffen Plan, named after Alfred von Schlieffen, the German chief of staff until 1906, which was essentially the flanking of the French defences by invading through Belgium, taking Paris in a few weeks, to then concentrate their efforts on the Eastern Front. The 2nd of August, an ultimatum was sent to Belgium, requesting them to allow German troops to pass through their land without resistance. It reached the hands of the King of the Belgians, Albert I. This king was a bit different. Born in 1875 to a Belgian prince and a German princess, who was a relative of Kaiser Wilhelm II. He joined military school being 16 and became a member of the Senate just 2 years later. He played the role of mediating the socio-political problems of Belgium. He traveled amongst the Belgian working classes incognito, worried about the severe social problems of his people. He actively helped orphans and the Belgian colony in the Congo, ordering reforms to aid the native population and prevent them from being abused. He wasn't meant to be the king at first, since he was fourth in line, but all of the older successors passed away. Ascending to the throne in 1909 as King of the Belgians, he made significant efforts into strengthening the army, establishing a fully fledged conscription in 1913. Just a year later, his army had 200,000 men. Albert rejected the ultimatum and refused to elaborate, taking supreme command of the army. This is what he had studied so many years for. The presence of the German army would have been an understandable risk of invasion. The 4th of August, it started with the Battle of Liège, which was actually the first battle of the Great War. The Belgians were not part of the Entente alliance, just people trying to protect their land. Albert's realistic objective wasn't victory, but to slow down the advance of the enemy. By maximizing the use of the fortifications in the city, the defenders made the following 11 days into a nightmare for the Germans, who suffered almost 20,000 casualties against less than 6,000, although they did win. Since they had to destroy every single fort one by one, it is estimated that the Schlieffen Plan was delayed by 4 to 5 days. The first weeks of these fronts, which were mobile warfare, were bloody. I doubt you could even imagine the high loss of lives on those weeks compared to the rest of the war. That was the case for the Battle of the Frontiers, the start of the Western Front, and the eventual advance of the Germans into northern France. It resulted in the German 1st and 2nd armies getting very close to Paris by the beginning of September. The 6th French army tried to flank the 1st enemy army from the north, forcing them to move north as well, creating a gap between the 1st and 2nd armies, towards which two allied armies advanced, leading to the First Battle of the Marne between the 5th and 12th of September. 8 allied generals were facing 6 German ones, all of which were French, apart from a British general who was, ironically, the famous John French, the leader of the British troops on land until then. The battle had a total of 500,000 casualties, but successfully stopped the German advance. What continued from there was the so-called Race to the Sea, a race that is merely the consequence of both armies constantly trying to flank each other from the north before they build defences and trenches. From there and all the way to the Belgian region of Flanders, the following weeks were a constant, gruesome journey in which the troops rested even less than the humanly possible. And in Belgium, amongst other battles, the siege of Antwerp that started the 28th of September blew a horrible wound to the Belgian army, having to retreat to the Yser River in Flanders, now with 60 to 80,000 soldiers left. Over 90% of the Belgian land was lost to the enemy. Their morale was kept intact thanks to the presence of King Albert within his men. Even though his ministers retreated back, he refused to retreat to Dunkirk, remaining in the front for a large portion of the war. He ensured his men that they would keep the last piece of Belgium free. In such a dire situation, these soldiers felt tempted to abandon the cause and escape a likely death, but most of them showed loyalty to their king. From the 15th of October, 4,400,000 British, Belgians and French, yes, you heard that right, fought in the First Battle of Ypres against 5,400,000 Germans. It ended in a stalemate. A young Adolf you-know-who participated in it as part of a Bavarian reserve regiment. Just north from there, there was a slim strip of land between the Germans and the ports of northwestern Belgium, which would grant them a crucial advantage in the war. And so, the Battle of the Yser came on. After quickly digging trenches, it started the 16th of October. 52,000 Belgians and 6,000 French defended their positions at the river Yser from 80,000 Germans. The king of the Belgians was leading the exact same way as a field marshal, but that changed. He put a wool uniform on and had a Belgian Mauser in hand. If you had been there, you would have seen a king and a soldier fighting shoulder to shoulder. The following weeks were hectic and the attacks were aggressive, disregarding the losses, although the defenders didn't allow them to come true. Many of the Belgians fought for their king and their country with zealousness and devotion. The Germans occupied key positions, establishing a small bridgehead in the West Bank. Since they reinforced with men as the days went on, the king took the hard decision of flooding the nearby sluice gates and the dam. By the hands of Belgian and French engineers, the channel and the railway lines were flooded, alongside the local homes, causing what eventually became a 2-kilometer wide strip of high water and even some lakes. Despite being halted, the Germans managed to carry out another invasion on the 30th, overrunning a second line of defences. The defenders organised a major counterattack. It was brutal. The Belgians kept fighting despite everything, since they knew it was their last push, their last chance. Finally, the invasion was repelled. The enemy reinforcements were called off, since the flooded front was deemed impassable. The whole battle caused 15 to 20,000 casualties for the defenders, and even more for the Germans. It led to the establishment of a fortified Yser Front. The impressive resistance of the Belgians during these first weeks caused the end of the race to the sea and the failure of the Schlieffen Plan. What was meant to be a mere walk in the park resulted in these ports remaining unconquered for the rest of the war. The mobile warfare ended. The Western Front was now a dead strip of land, of parallel lines with no man's land in between, from the Yser and all the way to the Swiss Alps. It was now trench warfare. The King of the Belgians was deemed a hero and was referred to as the first soldier of Belgium, famously recognized as the king who didn't wear a fancy hat but a regular infantry steel helmet, the Soldier King. He would remain close to his men for the following 4 years of the war. Due to proving his mettle on the command, Albert was given the supreme command of the Groupe d'Armée de Flandre, fighting from the 28th of September to the 2nd of October of 1918 on the 5th Battle of Ypres, one of the most crucial of the 100 Days Offensive, emerging victorious. Once the war ended, the king spoke to the leaders of other nations, such as UK, Italy, France and the States, begging them to not do to the German people what had been done to the Belgians, expressing an honest feeling of forgiveness. Although the American president, Wilson, agreed with him, the ultimate harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles were not of the approval of Albert, predicting the hate that would be born from it. He will heavily contribute to the efforts of reconstruction of Belgium and carrying out reforms for the sake of progress, some of them in support of the equality of black people, and others for preventing the rise of socialist revolutions, alike to the Russian ones. He passed away in 1937 during a hiking accident, just 2 years before Europe will experience the major consequences of not listening to him. These soldiers were lions, truly worthy of their king, and he was too, truly worthy of his men. And of course, the band Sabaton made a song about it. It's called Race to the Sea, one of the songs that inspired me to make this channel the most, for it made my eyes wet more than once. And that's it. Now you know that morale is an important part of getting stuff done right. Ciao!